You're listening to Pro Community, a Socius podcast, the show where online community meets business performance.
Welcome to episode number 8 of Pro Community, the show where online community meets business performance. I'm Josh Paul, and as always, you can find all of the episodes of Pro Community at Socius.com. Now, usually when I start a show, I give a little introduction of the guest that I'm going to be speaking to that day. But my guest today is involved in so many aspects of online community management that I'm going to take a page out of the great Mitch Joel of the 6 Pixels of Separation podcast's playbook and start off with a question. So, who are you and what do you do?
Well, the first part is really easy. I'm Tim McDonald. We'll get that one right out of the bat. What I do is quite a bit of different things, but all of them involve community management building in some form or fashion. So my day job, my paying job, is a community manager for HuffPost Live, which is a live streaming network of Huffington Post that we just launched 2 weeks ago. So that's the pretty exciting part and one that I'm very passionate about. I also run a group called My Community Manager, where it is an online site for online community managers, those people interested in becoming community managers, those people that are community managers, and we also try and assist businesses that are looking to learn more about what a community manager is, best practices, hiring, all that good stuff. And then I also run an online show every weekend called Coffee Time Chat, which the weekend edition is called The Hangover Show. Not that we get drunk the night before, but just that it's the weekend. It's time to wake up after a long work week and kind of get the day going on a positive note. And we do that every Saturday and Sunday morning. So that's more of a social, a lot of different topics, but we're just starting that and trying to really build a community using a video format. And so I know we're talking here and it's on video, and it's one of the things that I'm really passionate about outside of online community management is using live streaming video as a form of communication and building communities.
Well, I'm really glad you could be part of the show this morning. So you have your hands in a lot of different community management activities at a lot of different organizations. Is that typical for an online community manager from your experience?
Well, I don't think it's typical. I think most community managers actually focus on just one community. Even though when I say that, and I want to preface this, I think most community managers all understand the advantages of working with other communities in order to increase the reach of their own community. So
tell me about some of those advantages of being involved in other communities is important for an online community manager. Why is that important?
Well, I think first and foremost, it's the easiest and quickest way to grow your community is by reaching out to existing communities. Why build something from scratch when somebody else has already done that work and you can take advantage of it? When I say take advantage, I don't want to sound like we're just scavengers and going after other people's hard work, but there's got to be benefit in it for both parties. And I think if you approach it from that standpoint, it's the best way and easiest and quickest way to build your own community while helping other people increase the size of their community.
So how did you get started in online community management? Let's take a step back.
Okay.
It always helps people understand, how to get to where you are by hearing about how you got there yourself.
Oh, sure. Well, and this is going to throw everybody for a loop right here. I started online community management when I was in residential real estate as a real estate agent, and I was working for a developer, and so I didn't have to have the traditional network like a lot of other realtors had. And when I saw his business starting to go down and realized that I had to do something by myself, I got involved in building my network through using social media. I was living in Chicago at the time. I got involved with Social Media Club Chicago, took on the communications for Social Media Club Chicago, and then quickly realized that what I was actually doing was being Social Media Club Chicago's community manager. And from there, I really became a student, and I still consider myself a student of life, but really specifically about community management and wanting to learn what other community managers were doing, the best practices, how we could use it. And what I quickly found was that there wasn't a lot of resources out there. So that's how I kind of came up with My Community Manager as a place for all of us, including myself, to be able to continue to learn and expand on what community management is and where it's going.
I think that the term online community is, it's a very important part of people's personal lives and business lives, but there's not a lot of definition around it. It means everything. When you talk about your online community, it means everything from your personal network to the fans of your organization to a private online community. And I think that the same can extend to online community management. So what is online community management?
Well, you're right. I mean, there is not one definition, I think, that encompasses everything, but kind of the one that I've kind of been attracted to, and I'm not sure where this originated from. I think Connie Benson and maybe Justin Isoff that I work with at Huffington Post, I think have both said this in the past, is online community management, is basically being the voice of the brand to the consumer and the voice of the consumer to the brand. And I think in simplest terms, across any platform, that is really the truest definition of what a community manager is.
And so people talk about online communities and social networks and building your personal network. Does it encompass all of that? I mean, you're pretty passionate about the difference between online community management and social media management. Where do you draw the lines?
Well, yeah, it's something that I'm very passionate about because I think a lot of people just hear social media and throw community manager label on it, and I think there are some very distinct differences between a social media manager and a community manager. And I just answered a thread last night that was asking this very question: what is the difference between social media manager and community manager? And I said social media manager is a push-pull relationship where a community manager is a holding hands relationship. And I think that kind of sums it up in the simplest of forms.
That's interesting. And what can that do for an organization? What is the end result of each? And what can good online community management do for any kind of organization?
Well, I think that the really good online community management, the benefits that come in is you are forming such a base of fans and understanding of your product and services, out in the marketplace. And your marketplace I always want people to understand, community management doesn't always have to be a consumer product. It could be internal communities too. So when I say your marketplace, that could be your workforce or your employee base. But you're always creating a sense of where people out in your community can do your job for you. They can spread your message. They can answer questions. They can be your consumer advocate. They can be your customer service people without actually working for your brand. So it's a very powerful tool that I think many of us considered maybe word-of-mouth marketing for a long time. And this is just a unique way that we can kind of, do that, form those relationships, and really keep that bond. Where as social media manager, I think is more about just, and it's not that it's less important, it's just as important, but it's more about the transactional aspect, the amount of traffic that you have coming into your site, the amount of likes that you have, the amount of shares that you have. Those are all quantitative numbers. I think it's much more difficult to quantitate what a community manager does.
I think you're right. And I think what you said about getting or enlisting people in your community to help you get things done, whether it's spread your message or advocate for your brand, support your customers. I think business leaders and leaders of other organizations can really see a tangible benefit to that, even though the ROI can be a little bit fuzzier on what is the ROI of a community manager. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think that's very true. I think with time, we'll be able to start assigning those values a little bit more definitively. Right now, it's very difficult to see because community management isn't something that you can see results from overnight. It's a building process that takes a lot of time. And ultimately, I think if we can start showing that we can, have a decrease in the amount of calls coming into the call center for help because of the fact that we have people out in the community responding quicker and probably more accurately than we could internally, we'll be able to show an ROI on that. But we don't have that history yet and the case studies yet to be able to really definitively prove that here's what we can show from that. But I do think that we are starting to see the steps put in place for us to be able to start putting that together.
And I think that time where we'll be able to have a much more clear ROI is not that far away. And it's not a result of community management being a newer discipline. It's really a result of online communities. They take, like you said, they take time to build. It's not a 3-month, 6-month endeavor. It's a 1 year, 2 year, 3 or 4 year endeavor to build a community and to grow a community.
Right, and I think it's important to understand you can go out in a weekend and get 1 million people to like your Facebook page, but 1 million people liking your Facebook page isn't a community, at least in my definition.
I think that's a really important point. I think most sophisticated online community managers would agree. So one of the things that I admire you for is you're not a big fan of titles in the online community management world, whether it's a senior community manager, whether it's a some sort of advocacy role, but you are passionate about the actual duties and tools and techniques that online community managers use. You encourage people to get past the title and really define online community management as the role in the community. Tell me about that.
Well, it really comes down to, I think, what we were just talking about a little earlier in the fact that there's not a clear understanding of what this role is. So that's what I'm passionate about, is just making sure people understand and bringing that to the forefront of what the role is. What you call yourself, I don't care. I don't care. I know plenty of social media managers that, in my opinion, are really community managers. I know a lot of CEOs that are community managers, even though they're called a CEO. So what I know, I'm trying to think of some of the real creative titles. I'm probably going to just make one up out of a couple that I know, but like Captain of Awesomeness, could be a community manager. It doesn't matter what you call yourself. You walk the walk. It doesn't matter what label you have on your business card or on your email signature. It's really what you do that makes you a community manager.
I agree, and I think that translates into a lot of different areas of business as well. So when you talk to online community managers and cover what's going on in the social business world, what's missing from the conversation? What are you not hearing enough about?
Really what I'm seeing here is community managers are something that's a very different element into, the business that we currently have. And really where I'm finding it fascinating is the areas that we can go out and start learning about, social anthropology, neuromarketing, understanding what our community is thinking, why they're thinking that, and how we can engage and interact with them on a higher level that is really going to help us in our jobs as community manager that I don't think anybody is really talking about right now. And those are two areas that I'm very interested in. I know they're talked about in other aspects of business, but I don't think I've ever heard them related to in community management, which I think it could be a very powerful tool for a community manager.
I agree. I think there's a huge anthropological, psychological element to community management, how communities move and operate, and are motivated that is the next level of community management beyond the tools and just having somebody in place. And that goes towards using your community. And actually, I get in trouble for saying the word using your community, but businesses do, take deliberate actions to participate and engage their community not for the fun of it, but to get actual, business results. But, to use your community to get those results.
Let's be honest. I mean, we all use each other. Our community uses us. We use the community. I mean, there's no bones about it. It gets down to business. So, it's okay that you're using the word use as long, because we're talking here on a business level. If I was talking to my community, I'm never going to tell them that I'm using them. But if they asked me if I was, I'd say, sure, but you're using me too, right? I mean, it's a mutual relationship. And that's, I think, the important part to get across.
Absolutely. So you have a proposal for South by Southwest for next February.
Yes.
That talks about community management in the Csuite. Tell me about how community management should influence and interact and become part of executives' lives.
Well, I think the way that we came up with this was there's three of us that kind of came up with this proposal, and we want it to be a workshop proposal. So I think it's important for everybody to understand that this is something that isn't just a workshop a panel. It's not a speaker getting up. It's not going to be me just getting up and talking what I'm talking about. It's getting a group of people involved in community management in the same room together and really coming up with what we're calling the Community Manager Manifesto, that we're going to come up with what direction we want and this position to go, where we see it heading in the future. Because ultimately, I think that almost every employee in an organization is going to be involved in community management in some form or fashion in probably the next 5 years. So with that being said, is a community manager really just going to be what we're seeing right now? Most organizations are calling it like an entry-level or mid-level position, or is it really going to be somebody at a high-level position in the C-suite that is going to be responsible for making sure that the community management duties is performed across the organization? And one of the reasons why I feel passionate that a community manager should report to a CEO is the fact that everything that we see in business today is talking about the challenges that we have because of the silos that exist. The only way to really break that down, and a lot of people think that I'm just a little naive when I say this, but I think the only way to really break that down is to have somebody that has influence and control over every part of the organization. And community management is one area that touches every part of an organization. So if you have a community manager that has influence and has say and has the backing of the CEO to make those things happen, I think we'll see some significant changes in business.
I think that's an important point. I wrote a post this spring, talking about we are all community managers now. And as businesses understand both the impact that a strong online community, whether it's public or private, can have on tangible business results, or if we're talking about how it can create efficiency and how it does touch every aspect of an organization. I'm seeing more and more online public relations cases where an online community is impacting public relations, product development, and innovation. And those are things that go directly towards profitability. This is not social media marketing. This is, touches every aspect of the business.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you look at it from a human resources perspective, from a product development, perspective, from a business development perspective. I mean, it literally touches, I think, every aspect of an organization.
And as we see more of that understanding created in the market by people like you and your my community manager activity that you do, I think that's when executives are going to take notice, when community management breaks out of the silos.
Well, and hopefully we'll see that soon. That would be my goal.
So let's get into the trenches for a second. You managed several communities. You have built several communities. What are some of the ways that you found that online community managers can maximize their time?
This is, I always have a hard time answering this question because when I find extra time, I seem to want to go out and build a new community. So it's, I really think that maximizing, the efficiencies in community management really gets into finding what works within your community and not wasting your time on things that don't work. And every community is a little bit different in how you do that. So, I read a lot of blogs and I participate in webinars. I'm a consumer of content. And I'm always reading about what people are trying and why you should try this and why you shouldn't try this. And, the bottom line to everything that you read out there is nothing applies to everybody. So find what works for your community. And as a community manager, you should know what your community wants. And it's not always what they tell you. It's in the numbers that they're showing you. So it's an important distinction. Look at what they're saying as far as their actions go, not what their words say. And then take the appropriate actions to respond to that. And I think when you do that, it really kind of, makes the most efficient use of your time, and then you can start developing other plans. So I know that was kind of a very long answer to of what should have been a simple question, but I think that's really the best advice I can give.
And I think that is, the people watching this video or listening to this podcast that's one of the big takeaways. I think is giving, they're going to come away with permission that I don't have to do it one particular way. There is no best way. I need to listen to my community and monitor their activity, pay attention to the data, and make decisions based on my community. So people coming away being empowered to do that is a huge gem coming out of this conversation. You recently wrote a blog post and hosted a Google Hangout on automation in online community management. What were some of the positions and conclusions that came out of that discussion on, some people think automation is the devil, and some people need it to, survive as community managers, and it's not that big a deal. The whole community does not collapse. Tell me about what you saw.
Well, it was very interesting. I just want to set up the basis for this to give everybody some names that I'm sure everybody knows is, Scott Stranton with Unmarketing, responded to a tweet that was calling him out for his stance on automation, which he's totally opposed to. He says, I think the original tweet was something along the lines of that he put up was, automation in social media is like sending a mannequin to a networking event. And then, somebody responded from Csuite, and it turned into this big thing that I saw. So that's how I came up with the topic. But as I thought about this, when I started in social media, I was under the same impression that Scott was, that the automation was not something that should be used. It was inauthentic. It was not social, I guess is the best way to put it. Since then, and in the last couple of years, I've started finding how automation really can make my job a lot easier. And that doesn't mean I'm less social. It doesn't mean I'm less real. And I think Christopher Penn is one of the people that I respect the most when I look at the work he does as far as how you can use automation without cheating your community in the social engagement portion of this. And he wasn't able to join us, but he did actually on our blog actually responded before the Hangout with his responses to all the questions that we were going to ask. And so it really is something that I was pretty interested in because everybody that was on the Hangout, I would say almost everybody was either hesitantly receptive to automation, or they were totally opposed to automation.
Very polarized.
And it was very slanted towards that one direction. And for me, my premise is, and I've said this several times, and I said it yesterday during our Hangout, is the key isn't whether you should automate or not. It's whether you can automate and not let people think you're automated. So that's the key to me. And I think that's what you can still achieve. If you can find the processes that are repetitive and automate those so that you're not constantly having to do them and not skimp on the engagement and the interaction with your community, you're still you're just being more efficient. You're not taking anything away. You're not cheating your community out of being social.
What are some examples where, bring a level lower? What are some examples? You may not want to reveal your secrets, but what are some examples that you've seen of automating something and not, in a way that doesn't let people know that it's automated?
Yeah, well,
scheduling blog posts, scheduling.
Yeah, it could be as simple as scheduling blog posts. I schedule all my blog posts. I don't hit send and publish on almost anything. Almost all of them are scheduled to go out. I usually schedule all of them for just after midnight, so I get the full 24 hours of the first day when they hit. Which tends to work for me a little bit better. So those are scheduled. That's automated. And I want people to understand, automated doesn't mean that everything, I just have an RSS feed that's pushing out my tweets. But when it comes to scheduling my tweets, I automate those tweets. I schedule them through the week for my community manager. I schedule them out because I don't have time to do that during the week. But by not having time, that doesn't mean that I don't have time to respond to people. I still am alerted when somebody favorites, when somebody replies, when somebody retweets one of the tweets. So I can thank them. I can get on and respond to them right away. I also know and have my schedule set up, and I have that visible to me at all times so that I know when something's happening. So if there is a crisis, because I think crisis management is one of the key issues that comes up when we're talking about automation, is so many brands, we see horror stories of, they had something scheduled to go out, something happens, that goes out, it's inappropriate, and oh my gosh, how did they do this? But if you have your schedule up there and you're paying attention to what's going on, you're able to cancel those out or pause those while that situation's happening. I schedule mine out. We have the Hangout, like you mentioned, for my community manager every Friday. I make sure that none of my scheduled tweets go out or Facebook posts go out during that time because there's a conversation, there's a discussion going on. So I'm not going to have that interrupted by something that's totally out of context coming up. You can plan for those things. I think your audience also becomes, or your community becomes used to when they can expect things from you. And so if you're tied up in a meeting, but they're still expecting something from you, how are you going to deliver that if you do everything in real time? So, it's using things in that form or fashion. Email responses, I think, can be used, and people know they're automated, but if they don't feel like it's automated, if they get some sense of this is a real person talking to me, that feels real to them. It doesn't feel automated. So it's okay to have automated responses as long as they're crafted in a way that doesn't make the person feel like it's automated. So I think as far as email goes, I think as far as blog posts go, and I think as far as posting on social media channels, all of that can be automated to an extent as long as you have the systems and the procedures in place to make sure that you can respond and react in timely manner.
And automating a lot of times lets you, gives you more time to respond in non-automated ways. It just frees up your time to be able to do that, to respond, to reach out to people.
Oh, absolutely. I would say that I have more time to respond because I do take the weekend to schedule out my week of my community manager post, and when it's during the week, I then have the time to be able to respond to those people. So if I didn't do that, I would not probably put out nearly as much content as I do.
So you just helped launch HuffPost Live, which is great, by the way. What was that process like, and what role did you play as the community manager?
Well, it was. And when you say I launched, I was one of many. I was not one of the original people that came on. They brought me on, months after they came up with this idea. But it's basically a live streaming network of the Huffington Post. We're on Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. So it's a 12-hour live stream, no commercial breaks, just constant live streaming. We have studios both in New York and in L.A. And really the process, as far as me as being a community manager, was finding people or identifying people that would be the right participants for this community on a live streaming platform. Huffington Post has a huge community of commenters, but people that comment on blog posts, in my estimation, and it's proving correct, are going to be very different than the people that want to participate in a video format. And so it was really trying to identify where I could go to, where those people were that would be interested in being on video, and still not discount the people that wanted to use text, because our platform is something that is very social and very engaging, as far as even if you don't want to be on video, you can still comment along with the conversation as it's happening on the video side. So it's really kind of building that with both parties. And it was really the challenging part for me was trying to build a community without the platform being in existence, because it's hard to tell people what you have and where to go if you don't have somewhere to direct them to. So that was a challenge, but now that it's there, people are starting to see it, and now I really feel like the work can really begin for me as a community manager.
That's great. I wish you all the best with that. The platform itself is very engaging, and your community management efforts just add to that. Does managing a community for a well-known brand pose unique challenges as well?
Yeah, they're unique. In some senses, it's easier because you already have the brand awareness. You already have a large community there. Like I had mentioned, though, the community for this site is somewhat different than what's on the HuffingtonPost.com side when you're reading text articles and having text comments. But it's a good challenge. It's a fun challenge. It's something that is interesting to see how it evolves, and the people that are still participating on both the live side of things and the .com side of things. I mean, we're all one site, one company, but it's you get people that are doing both. You get people that are just on live, and you get people that are just on the .com. And so it's how do we grow all three of those areas at the same time is really what the challenge is.
That's interesting. Now does the election and political climate pose any challenges to this kind of online community management?
Well, I mean, anybody that knows Huffington Post, I think, knows which direction people would put it on as far as media goes when it comes to politics. That's not to say that we're not open to all points of view. We don't moderate for anything that's because of a point of view. It's just because it's out of context or a personal attack on somebody. The political is a very integral part of Huffington Post. It's things that people are most passionate about, what they tend to engage with and talk to us the most about. So it's going to be very interesting. It's going to be my first year with Huffington Post, and we do these things called shadow conventions, which are conventions that shadow the actual Republican and Democratic conventions going on to talk about the issues that are important to the population, but not being discussed at the actual conventions. So this is going to be very interesting, and HuffPost Live is going to, obviously, we just launched, so this is going to be the first year that we're participating in the shadow conventions. It's going to be, I'm fascinated to see how our community interacts with the video side of things during these shadow conventions. It's going to be very interesting.
I don't know when you're going to sleep between now and November, but I wish you the best with that. I encourage everybody to check out HuffPost Live and My Community Manager. They're both outstanding for their different reasons. So last question. So if you're speaking to a room full of community managers, which you do often, whether it's the social media club or the community management Unconference that is coming up in February, is that right?
We don't have a date yet, but we're slating February in New York for our next one. We did one in Chicago last February, and we're hoping that we'll have several more this year across the U.S. and I think one up in Toronto as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if you're
okay, go ahead.
No, and if you're speaking to a room full of community managers, and you want them to walk out of the room with one takeaway, what would you want them to come away with?
Oh, wow. I can only get one. I think the most important thing is to really, as a community manager, look beyond where we are today. That's what I would want everybody to walk away with. Don't think where we're sitting today in the position that we're in. Look where we can take this, where you can take community management to the next level. And I think that's the biggest thing that I would encourage everybody to do that's sitting in a room with me.
I think that's really good advice. Tim, I want to thank you for sharing your experience and insight today. And before we go, where can people find you on the web?
Well, they can find me personally on Twitter at TA McDonald, or my website that basically is my landing page is tamcdonald.com. You can also find me at my community manager, which is mycmgr.com. Also on Twitter at my. And you can find me on any of the social platforms, major ones. Twitter is probably my favorite. Facebook, Google Plus, all those places I'm at. So, but I would say anywhere you want to find me, just up there. And if you want to come check us out at HuffPost Live, the short one is huff.lv, and that'll bring you right to the site. It's a lot longer than saying live.huffingtonpost.com.
Well, perfect. And if you're in the online community management or social business world, Tim's definitely somebody you want to connect with. And as always, you can find Socius and the Pro Community Podcast at socius.com and on iTunes, where 5-star reviews and positive reviews are always appreciated. Tim, I want to thank you once again for being on the show today. Have a great day.
You too.